Hi everyone, and welcome to my creamy vegan pasta tutorial video. What I've done first of all is I have put 15 ml of oil into my pan and I've put it on a medium heat. The first thing that I'm going to fry is the onion, so I'm just letting that oil heat up slightly. In order to check that my oil is heated up, I'm going to take a couple of small pieces of diced onion and I'm going to add them to the oil. When the oil is hot enough, I should see little bubbles around the pieces of onion, and this shows me that my oil is ready to add the rest of the onion in. It's always best practice to make sure that your oil is properly heated before you add your vegetables, because otherwise the vegetables soak up a lot of the oil and become greasy. So I've started to see little bubbles around my onion, so I'm going to get ready to put the diced onion into the pan. I've used a red onion here, but you can feel free to use a brown onion if you prefer. I've already finely diced it. If you would like to watch a video to remind you how to finely dice your onion, that will appear on the top right hand corner of your screen just now, a basic skills video showing you how to dice your onion. So now that my oil is hot enough, I'm going to add in the rest of the diced onion and I'm going to give that a little bit of a stir. We're going to fry the onion for about 3 minutes. So I'm going to give it a good stir, pop the lid on, and I'm going to set a timer for 3 minutes. I wouldn't recommend just leaving it for 3 minutes. You need to come back and check and stir it. And remember never to leave a pot on the hob unattended. So you should always have your eye on it, even if it's on a low heat with the lid on. So lid goes on. I'm setting a timer for 3 minutes. I'm going to keep an eye on it and give it a stir about halfway through. Whilst that's frying, I'll show you the other ingredients. So in here, I've got cherry tomatoes. What I've done is I've given them a good wash in a colander and then I've cut them in half. It's really important to wash fruit and vegetables thoroughly before you use them. This helps to remove any germs or bacteria from the surface, and it also helps to remove any pesticide residues from farming. You may also notice here that I've got some crushed garlic in the bowl with the cherry tomatoes because they're going to be added at the same time. If you would like to watch a video on how to crush garlic, there should be videos popping up on the top right hand corner of your screen just now. These are basic skills videos that show you 2 different possible methods for crushing garlic. I've also got my pasta here ready. It's weighed out. I've got 150 grams of pasta. If you wanted to make this recipe even healthier, you could use whole grain pasta for extra fibre. Okay, so I'm going to give the onions a little bit of a stir and just check up on them. They're softening nicely. Pop the lid back on until the timer is up. In the meantime, I'll show you the other ingredients. In this measuring jug, I have 200 millilitres of vegetable stock, 200 millilitres of non-dairy milk, a 15ml spoon of tomato puree, and I have opted to use soya milk as my non-dairy milk because that's what I had in the fridge. However, oat milk is probably the best option because it's got a very neutral flavour and is quite creamy. So you can decide you can use any type of non-dairy milk that is convenient for you. Or if you don't have access to non-dairy milk and you're not a vegan, you can feel free to just try this recipe with dairy milk instead. The great thing about a lot of the non-dairy milks now is that they are fortified with calcium. They have calcium added to them. Calcium is really important for vegans because they don't eat dairy products. They can be prone to becoming deficient in calcium. So it's really important that you check the label when you buy a non-dairy milk alternative and you check that it has calcium added to it. Calcium, of course, is important for strong bones and teeth. So it's really essential that vegans make sure they get good sources of calcium in their diet. Okay, that's the timer gone off for my onions, so I'm going to give them another little stir, and then I'm going to add in the next ingredients. So the next thing to go into the pot is the cherry tomatoes and garlic. Them a good stir. And then we're going to pop the lid on, and we're also going to set a timer for those ingredients for 3 minutes. You might be able to see from my dial, I've got the heat down nice and low on this. You do not want to be using a high heat. You don't want to burn your onions and garlic. So I've got it on a nice low heat, and it's just very gently softening. Whilst that is cooking, I'll show you the other ingredients. So here I have 2 big handfuls of spinach. I've washed the spinach thoroughly in a colander, and that is ready to go. If you don't have fresh spinach, you can use frozen spinach, or you can use tinned spinach, or you could use a different green vegetable. It's up to you. Spinach is a great source of nutrients for vegans. It is high in iron, and iron is really important for healthy red blood cells. Sometimes vegans can be prone to being deficient in iron because they don't eat red meat, and red meat is the main source of iron in the diet. However, there are plenty of vegan sources of iron. You just need to make sure that you are eating them. And spinach is a really good example of something that's high in iron. It's also high in vitamin C, which helps us to absorb iron, and it's high in calcium as well. I've also got here some nutritional yeast. This is optional in the recipe because I appreciate this is something that not many of you will have at home. It's quite commonly used now in vegan cookery because it has quite a cheesy flavour, so it's often added to sauces to give a cheesy flavour. To be honest, the pasta tastes delicious without it, so you can just leave it out. Or if you are not making a vegan version of this pasta dish, you could use a cheese such as grated Parmesan or even grated cheddar instead of the nutritional yeast. So halfway through my timer, I'm just going to give these tomatoes and garlic a good stir. And they're doing well, they're softening nicely. Lid back on, and I'm just adjusting the heat very slightly. Just keep an eye on your heat all the time. If your vegetables are sizzling a lot, turn the heat down. If they're not sizzling at all, you might want to just turn the heat up very slightly. Okay, so my timer is up. I'm going to give this a good stir. And then we're going to add in the next lot of ingredients to the pot. First thing is a little bit of salt and pepper. So we're seasoning the vegetables. Remember, not too much salt, because too much salt in the diet can cause high blood pressure. You can add as much black pepper as you like, and this will add a lovely flavour to your dish. Stir your seasoning into your vegetables. And then we're going to add in the liquid. So remember, this is vegetable stock, non-dairy milk, and tomato puree. So add that into your vegetables. And then we're also going to add our pasta in. So we are not cooking our pasta separately and draining it. We are actually cooking the pasta in the sauce in this recipe. So it's all in one pot, which helps to save us dishes at the end, which is always good in my mind. Stir that through. And then we're going to turn the heat up to bring this to the boil. So we want the sauce to be bubbling so that the pasta can cook properly. So I'm just going to keep stirring it regularly while I'm waiting for it to come to the boil so that it doesn't stick or burn on the bottom. You might notice there that my stock cube isn't fully dissolved. Don't worry if that's the case, it will dissolve as the mixture heats up. So you might see that it's starting to bubble around the edges now. And it's continuing to bubble. So I'm now going to turn the heat down nice and low. Stir. And then I'm going to pop the lid on fully this time and leave that to cook on a low heat. I'm going to set a timer for 10 minutes. That's about how long the pasta will take to cook. But it's important that you do not leave the pasta for 10 minutes. You must come back and stir regularly, at least every couple of minutes, to check that the sauce is not burning or sticking on the bottom, and to check that the pasta isn't running out of liquid. So if you find that most of the liquid's gone very quickly, you need to turn the heat down and you need to add a little bit more water so that your pasta has enough liquid to cook in. So it's important that we check it regularly. Okay, so I'm just going to give it a little stir and check how it's doing. Apologies for the steam on the camera. I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit because it's bubbling quite a lot. And I'm going to give it a good stir. And there's plenty of liquid in there at the moment and it's not sticking at all to the bottom. So everything is fine for just now. Leave that to cook a bit longer. So that is my timer just gone off. So I'm going to check my pasta and see how it's doing. Take the lid off. I'll try and avoid too much steam hitting the camera. And I'm going to give it a good stir. And you can see that most of the liquid has been absorbed and we've got a lovely sauce to our pasta now. I'm going to just quickly test my pasta for readiness. The way that I like to do this is take a little bit of pasta out with a fork, let it cool and taste it. You're looking for the pasta to be al dente, so it should still have a little bit of a bite to it. And this pasta is perfect. The next step is to add in our spinach. It looks like a huge amount of spinach just now, but spinach wilts a lot when you cook it. So I'm adding the spinach to the pot and I'm also adding the nutritional yeast. The best way to cook spinach into a sauce, first of all, is just to put the lid back on the pot and let it wilt for a minute or so before you mix it through the sauce. Okay, so it's been left to wilt just slightly. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stir the spinach and the nutritional yeast through the sauce. And I want to make sure I stir this really well. As I stir, you can see the spinach is starting to wilt and shrink really quite quickly. The other thing that's important, the nutritional yeast does not need to be cooked, but I do need to make sure that it is thoroughly mixed through the sauce. So just keep stirring until everything is thoroughly mixed and your spinach has cooked into the sauce. Okay, I'm happy with that. So I'm going to turn off the heat and I'm going to serve it up.